Hey everyone, and welcome to our classification quiz. So we just went through the recap. We just covered a lot of information about different ways we can classify various typefaces. Whether it's based on its time period or looking at the box system, really just more of kind of its actual appearance. We have a lot of different classifications we went through, so that was a lot. Now it's time to make sure that we're retaining all this information. So you should have access to the quiz as of right now. I am about to go over the actual answers to the quiz, so feel free to pause the video, answer the questions as you see fit, and then let's double check, both of our answers and make sure we walked away with the right answers. Alright, so let's cover the actual answers to this classification quiz. So, starting off from number 1, let's just go through the list. Which classification typically includes cupped serifs and is usually based on typography designed in the 16th century? So we have 3 different choices here. Let's just kind of go through the list and determine if it makes sense or not. So A, script typeface. You are never going to see a script typeface with serifs, period. So we can eliminate that right off the list immediately. B came after old style typefaces, right? Transitional was kind of that age of enlightenment, like we were talking about a little bit. Really, to be honest, it seemed at least like they just kind of frowned upon cupped serifs at that point. They had such precision engineering for their different typefaces that, cupped serifs were a thing of the past. So that really just kind of leaves us a C at this point. Old style is definitely the right answer for number 1. So now getting into 2 through 4, they're all just trying to determine what typeface is used in that sentence, or at the very least, how would you classify that typeface? So number 2, you can classify it 2 different ways, but really it's pretty simply laid out. It's either a modern or a did it typeface. It just screams modern. It has like the barely visible hairline serifs, really thick contrast between thick and thin strokes. So, by all means, modern typeface, we don't need to go into it any more than that. Number 3 is a little bit more open-ended than this. So if you walked away with something different, but you still feel confident in it, go ahead and stick with what you said. But the way I would classify this, let's just start with the obvious. It's definitely a sans serif typeface, right? No serifs in sight, clean and simple from that point of view. Past that, I would definitely also classify it as a graphic typeface. It is by all means, kind of falling into a category of itself. It has the filled in counters of each letter, So definitely going along the lines of graphic, kind of with a little bit of a grunge feel going towards it as well. But that's how I would classify number 3. And now for number 4, this one's actually a little bit harder, for me personally to categorize. Once again, let's start with the obvious. It's definitely a serif typeface, right? It has very clear serifs, relatively obvious from that standpoint. Past that, I know for a fact this typeface was made just a few years ago. It has this kind of attempt at making it look handmade. It's definitely not, though. It's definitely made on the computer. So we can go as far as to say that it would be a graphic typeface in that sense. And besides that, that's probably as far as I would want to go with it. It's fairly hard to legitimately express with the classifications what this typeface specifically is, category-wise. So I would go as far as to just simply say it is a serif typeface and it's also a graphic typeface. So now for number 5. Going back to our conversation about the Frutiger scale, which number from Frutiger's scale would communicate the most extended and lightest type variation? Well, I can tell you right now, C is as far on the opposite side of that spectrum as it gets. That is the boldest and the most condensed version that we have access to. And then looking at B, you're getting a little closer. It is definitely the most extended version. However, that front number is talking about how heavy the typeface is, more or less. And that is definitely the heaviest it gets. Therefore, it's not going to be the lightest, which leaves us with the only logical answer left, which is going to be A. A is up in the top of our Frutiger scale. That's going to be communicating the most extended and the lightest type variation. So that covers the quiz. So again, if you had any issues answering any of those questions throughout, please feel free to go and review some of the videos from this classification section. No one is going to judge if it's going to take you a couple watches. We covered a lot in this section, so go through at your own pace. Determine if you need a recap anywhere. It's going to be really helpful as we begin getting into kind of more specialized circumstances to design with. And besides that, that covers it for this section. So see you guys in the next video. Thanks again.